This is where there would be massive crowds of people going, wow, yay. So, yay, Jenna. So, welcome to the Atheist Experience. I'm Dillahunty. Joining me this week, Jenna Belk.
Hello.
And we are live. It is April 26, 2020, in yet another edition of Quarantine Edition of Atheist Experience. As a reminder, we're using a different call-in number than we did when we were in the studio, and that's 512-991-9242. Please remember that there's going to be extra lag, extra delay, because we are all here. And by here, I mean I'm here at my place. Jenna's there at her place. There's a crew camera that will show that, hey, there's nobody at the building. But each of those individuals is, at their respective homes, remoting into desktops and doing stuff on other machines. We also, I'm expected to remind people that there's merch and there's channel memberships and all the stuff that you can do to help keep the shows going. And we're gonna do everything in our power to make sure that we continue to do this for as long as necessary and try to avoid hiccups and interruptions in the show. Last week's episode of the Atheist Experience just kind of went off the air in the middle of a really interesting call, but we were way over time, and there were a number of technical issues that happened along with some confusion with one of the cast. But I believe that episode's all up there, and everything's been fixed after the fact. My apologies to the person we were talking to, and to everybody who was watching that, waiting for resolution to a really good call, probably one of the most productive calls we've had, with Atheist in quite a while. Everything here is I'd love to say it's going well, except that it feels wrong to say that. It's going well-ish considering the circumstances. I mean, when I look at the latest numbers, the death count in the United States from coronavirus-related illness is 55,341. That's a month and a half. And we're almost at we've almost matched the numbers we lost in Vietnam over 20 years. It's a potentially terrifying thing. Granted, I've been quarantined at home and haven't had human contact. No, I haven't touched anybody. I haven't interacted with anybody. It's just so weird. Not a single hug or anything in weeks and weeks. And there's people are dealing with a lot. How are you holding up, Jenna?
I'm actually doing pretty good. I'm getting a little lonely, but I'm finding out that I'm having fun. I'm paddling and I'm learning about myself, and I'm learning and doing things. So I guess I'm just filling my time, and I'm just not wasting this chance, I guess.
Yeah, I have 53,000 projects to do around the house, and I have done, I think, one of them. Like I was mentioning, I ordered a bidet and installed it in the main bathroom upstairs. I like it so much, I'm ordering them for all the other toilets in the house. And, not just to save toilet paper, but also I bought guitar hangers so you can hang guitars and stuff on the wall, because they were basically just spread out all over the place on little stands. And so now there's 6 instruments hanging up downstairs in the living room. And then I've just got one more guitar, and then one of Eric's guitars. I didn't hang that up, Eric, so it's being lovingly protected. But we've been doing this. Thankfully, this is happening. I mentioned a week or so ago, there was a period of time where I don't suffer from mental health issues on a chronic basis or depression, but there was a period of time after I lost a job where I basically isolated myself in the house for 18 months. At that point, though, I had a roommate. There were other people living with me, so it wasn't like I was alone. And a month of being alone would have been really hard if it weren't for modern technology. We can have, we can continue doing the show even though we're not together.
Right.
I can have video chats. I can video chat with my girlfriend. I can video chat with friends of mine. It's a whole different world, and it's making things a little more bearable. But there's going to be fallout from this, both with regard to health issues and financial issues for a great many people in the coming years. And I'm encouraged that the secular community is stepping up, not only of their, the organizations like Humanists at Work and Atheists Helping the Homeless and stuff like that, but there are secular organizations next week. Well, not next week. The first Thursday in May is the National Day of Prayer every year. And usually we run a National Day of Reason to coincide with it. This week, there are secular organizations that are doing not a day of prayer, but a week of actually helping, of working with organizations for people in need, people who are at greater risk, delivering food to those people who can't get out, things like that. And I'm encouraged by what I'm seeing many people do, while I am also terrified of the batshit crazy idiots, for lack of a better word, who are willing to put everybody else at risk while they protest the fact that they can't get a freaking haircut, or a president suggesting we can, shove light into people and inject disinfectants. And, oh, no, he didn't say that. I think it's funny that there were two basic lines of thought that came out. No, the president didn't say that. The president didn't say that. The president didn't say that. And then when the president says it was sarcastic, now all of a sudden he did say it, but it was sarcastic.
He was testing us.
Yeah, he should look up sarcasm, because that's not what fucking sarcasm is anyway.
No, and that's not the appropriate time for sarcasm either.
Yeah, the appropriate time for sarcasm is when I say, you are the smartest president ever.
Oh, man. But you know what? I think that this pandemic is actually going to expose a lot of our weak points, where we've been slacking. So
yeah, if it doesn't wind up killing them all off in the process, I worry about the great loss of life and how some people. I don't want to sound as callous as some of the people I'm objecting to. I fully understand that the world needs to run, and there comes a point where we've got to get back to work. Otherwise, we're all going to die anyway. This is it. This is the cost benefit analysis that you're constantly running of how long can we stay on this track before we reach a point from which it's irrecoverable. And I think there's just some disagreement about when that is. But when the people who are advocating for let's open now are like, I need to go see my hairstylist. Are you fucking kidding me?
I would think that the time to go back is when the risk of going back and and catching this pandemic and the whole world dying is lower than the risk of everybody staying home. I mean, it's just math.
I just love the fact that it's the hairdo things that have been irritating me, because I went the first few weeks and didn't bother shaving. I shaved last week, and it's getting rough again. And yes, I'm on an internet show, and so people can see me, and I don't want to look awful and rough. But apart from this, exactly who do I have that I need to get my hair done for, or my hair did? It doesn't make any sense to me.
I've come to the point where, you know what, if that's what you're worried about, then I'm not worried about you.
Yeah, your hair looks amazing, Jenna.
Thank you. I actually cut it about an hour ago. It's pretty bad, but the headphones covered up. So
yeah, I shaved for the first time in a week. So that's why I look younger and handsome, vibrant, Anyway, anything else you want to get to? You wanted to start taking calls?
Yeah.
All right. We've got Bug in Arlington, Texas, is struggling with indoctrination and how emotions play a big role in keeping people in religion. How are you, Bug?
Hey, how you doing? That was fast. Thank you for choosing me first. And Jenna,
we like you more than we like anybody else. That's why we did it.
I appreciate it. Well, last time I got to talk to you, I kind of got emotional, and that was part of the conversation we were having when I was trying to ask you, and I forget the other host that was there, on your opinion about the main emotions. And I believe it was a guest, but I was asking, was it just arrogance and emotions? And you were saying that's not all it is, because from your stance, that's part of your emotions also. So it's a vice versa type. No, that was Matt. That was Matt that I was talking to. And he was saying that his emotions also play a part in his decision, on why he is convinced. And I think I wasted some time because I got emotional with my details when I wanted to get more to the root of it. And I think, Matt, it's not the same emotion you're talking about when you say it's your emotions that are also playing a part in your decision making. But what I'm trying to say is emotionally it feels good just to go with what's easy to go with instead of feeling like there's no hope. I don't know if I'm making any. I don't.
I can understand that. When I talk about emotions playing a role in my decision, an example came up just the other day. I've been quarantined at home, haven't had human contact in weeks. And just the other day, a friend of mine who I happened to contact, they didn't reach out to me. I reached out to them to find out how they were doing. They mentioned that things were not going well and they had to find a new place to live. And I let them know that they could move into the guest room temporarily. Now, a few hours later, they were moved in and staying here. So here's a person who is less strict on quarantine procedures than I am, just that there's a moving and everything else going on in the process. But a demonstration of compassion and what feels good to help somebody out overrode the strict kind of. The smartest thing for me to do would, especially as I'm higher risk, is for me to have zero contact with anybody through this. And yet
I feel you. Yeah.
That's what I take because I care about other people.
Humanity. You have a conscience.
Yeah. And I got there without a God, but you're talking about, why don't you explain further what it is that's troubling you about this complex mesh of thoughts and emotions that are, you're struggling with indoctrination. You're not sure where you're at, but go ahead, talk.
Okay, I'm convinced that there is not a deity doing anything helping us out, or even if it is something that happened, it's not something conscious that's making decisions. But what I'm more so struggling with, I don't care about the numbers thing and how many people believe in God or any kind of religion, but what is going on that makes it so much easier to do and more powerful. And for the, we spoke of the examples last time. It's confusing to me on when I'm talking to my mom or talking to somebody that believes sincerely, like really bad. It's almost scary, the perception, the perspective I have now on when they say things like, well, just anything, for example, when they speak about God or speak about something that tragic may have happened. Because since the last time I've talked to you, Matt, in a month, my aunt and my grandma passed away, not because of COVID though. And it's okay. It's all
sorry.
Everything's okay. No problem. But what I'm saying is that is something that's very, hard to deal with. But when you have that crutch or security blanket, when you're trying to make sense of this stuff, you would rather have those people or have a better situation than whatever situation happens. When you say it's not just emotions and it's people coming into conclusions, I feel like it's more so a majority of the world we're not emotionally stable or just, sincere mentally when it comes to the situation at hand, what you're facing, what you're dealing with in life. I don't know if I'm just like sounding like I'm rambling, if you get what I'm getting at with. Do you get what I'm getting at with how
are you saying that you're I'm sorry. Are you saying that you're worried?
I'm almost getting to the point to where it's like maybe it's not so bad for them to just believe it if it makes them feel good. Okay. Like maybe everybody past 45 or 40, we just leave them alone. And then do you get what I'm saying?
So we're not aiming for a specific age group or gender or religion or anything. We're not aiming.
You are. I'm sorry. You are. Yeah.
Yeah, we're just trying to put out information about our experiences and about how we solve problems as atheists. And this is just my experience. And trying to help people through what it sounds like you went through. It sounds like you went through deconversion, correct?
Yes, ma'am. Yeah.
What religion?
Non-denomination.
No. Okay. So like Christian.
Yeah, Christian. I'm sorry.
Okay.
Yeah, Christian style.
No, that's okay.
Yeah,
and so you're concerned that maybe the older people in your life that are more indoctrinated, kind of, you can't teach an old dog new tricks kind of thing. You're saying that maybe we'll just let them
you're
not worry about it.
Yeah.
So I think that every situation is case by case, I think, because everybody's different and everybody believes different things for different reasons, and they will change their mind for different reasons, and that's going to depend on them. And so I would say, for example, there are people in their 40s, 50s, 60s who do deconvert and change their mind and realize the errors of religion. But there are also people, there are so many people who don't. So I think it just kind of depends on the person. I don't think you should target anybody. Just put it out there. Put your voice out there when you see a problem and you feel like you need to help. And then it'll just, butterfly effect. It'll do its own thing. You don't have to control it from there.
And to make sure to be clear, like, and my bad on how I worded that, because I didn't mean, like, when I said the 45-50 thing, not to target people, but I was just kind of giving an example when I speak of the people in my family or some people that's close to me, like my uncle, and then the stuff, how things happen, and we all like take it differently. And I look at when I was asking Matt that question, I just was trying to see if he could see how complicated this thing is when you really don't believe in it, and then you try to understand how people get so like how my mom believes so hard that I like, it's just weird. I'm sorry, I'm kind of burning time at this point, but I kind of got some good feedback from you about just the way I should feel about it, and I should probably, everybody's different on how I shouldn't really just feel like there's something I need to do, I guess.
Right. No, I completely agree. That's great. But I do want to add something that just people, how when you repeat something over and over and over again, it just kind of becomes a habit and you don't have to think about it anymore. It just becomes natural.
Yeah.
Right. So that's kind of what happens, right? So it kind of depends on how often they do it and how devoted they are when they do it and what's going on around them and what kind of environment they're in when they do it. And it just kind of, the more intense it is, the harder it is to reverse it.
I want to, I don't know. I guess I appreciate, I guess I appreciate you saying that. Like, I want to talk to my mom and just have a conversation with her, because right now she just lost her aunt and her mom. She lost her sister and her mom, in 1 month. And then, you don't really know what to say.
I would say maybe right now is not the time to start questioning religion.
Yeah, that's
exactly. Yeah, I agree. Yeah,
it's not having anything to do with age or anything else. It's like you don't decide, hey, here's the best time for me to discuss why I don't accept your religion, and let's do that at a funeral or right after a funeral or at Christmas or whatever. It's one of the things about the Atheist Experience is that we don't make outgoing calls. People who want to talk up to us about this are calling in. I'm not running around hassling pastors or hassling grandmothers or talking to grieving people. By the way, I'll point out that it's religions that are doing that. The religions are going after people at particular times of weakness. They're going after people, who are struggling with addiction or grieving the loss of someone or whatever else, and trying to pretend that they have the answer. We're not doing any of that, because I'm not pretending I have an answer. I'm actually objecting to them pretending they have an answer. So yeah, in this time, I'm very, very, very sorry for your recent losses, and I can't imagine what that'd be like in such a short period of time. But it's just a matter of, this is not the right time to be having conversations about religion and afterlife while people are grieving and things like that.
Right. I would say as it comes up naturally, that's when you talk about it.
Well, what would you guys do? What would you guys do if, and I'm not trying to I'm not even combating you. I'm giving you the real what's going on. Well, how do you respond when I say I don't know what to say? It's like, we have a close relationship and I talk to her often and we don't butt heads necessarily because I guess I don't challenge her anymore. I'm okay. I'm okay with that. But when she calls and she's really sad and talking to me about it, it's hard for me to just lie. I'm not saying I just go with what she wants, but when she's trying to reason and say stuff, it's more so I'm just lost for words, literally.
I actually have the exact same struggle because I'm the kind of person that when I see a problem, I speak my mind. And so when I hear somebody that I love talking about religion in the way that I used to, and so I understand, but now is just confusing because it just sounds it sounds weird, right? Because as you're like, oh my God, that just doesn't make sense anymore. So what I'm trying to learn how to do is bite my tongue because just because I feel the need to say it does not mean that they need to hear it. And so I try to just, if I have a problem, I'll ask a question and say, is there anything I can do to help? Is there anything I can do to fix this? Why do you believe that kind of thing? But I don't know. I wouldn't try when somebody's arguing with you, their guard is up and they're not really listening to you. They have a point and they have emotions that they're projecting at that time. So they're not really open to accepting new ideas and changing their mind about anything. So if they're upset or, emotional, if they're sad, when sad time like this, I would say those are probably the worst times to even talk about it. Just say, you know what, we'll talk about that later.
Yeah.
But you can always talk about it later.
Right. And you're right. And you're right. I'm glad. Okay, Jenna, you kind of got exactly kind of where I was trying to get to without really saying, but it's okay.
Good.
You kind of filled that out. That's why I wanted to. I guess I talk about emotions because my mom is extremely emotional, and her reasoning, it's like I don't want to hurt her. I just appreciate the time she's here, and at the same time, it's just like unbearable. I think I can. I think I can just appreciate her while she's here, and like you said, bite my tongue.
Just when you feel like she's emotional, I wouldn't say always.
Yeah.
So, Bug.
Right. To be fair. Yeah.
We're going to let you go and move on to some other callers, but I'm grateful that Jenna was able to kind of get to the heart of some of it, and I appreciate the fact that you're having to deal with a lot. So, call in from time to time. Let us know if things are improving or if you found a better opportunity to deal with those issues and to deal with your own stuff. Because you're not just the one who's responsible for what everybody else believes. You're still struggling through what your position is on things.
And check out Street Epistemology on YouTube. Anthony Magnabosco started a channel for that. And so there's a bunch of people doing it where it's a way that you can ask questions so that you're not barking at people. You're not telling them anything. All you're doing is asking questions to kind of expose the origin of their belief system, kind of figure out how did you get to there, because once you start digging into that, then they can have the opportunity to realize on their own, wait a second, I don't have that answer. I don't know that. Maybe I got to start over. So then they'll go looking for answers, and then maybe, things happen from there. But I would recommend checking that out. That's a really good way to start learning new ways to talk to people and more sincere ways. Also, it's made me a kind of person.
Okay, right.
Anyway, Bug, you take care of yourself. Call back sometime. Thanks.
Thanks, Bug.
You too, man.
So we tried. I don't care about the mystique behind the show. While you were sitting there having a good conversation and I was listening, there are these weird artifacts that they're seeing on my face in Rendezvous, which has never happened before, and I'm not able to find it on my end. The audio looks pristine, so we're just going to write it up as something internet wonky is going on between me and the rendezvous thing, but I don't want to mess with it during the show because there are plenty of other people to talk to, including Phillip in Naples, Florida, who has some kind of question. I'm not completely sure I understand this, or the call screener did, about the absence of God paradox. What's going on, Phillip?
Yes, hello, Matt. I'm very honored to be able to speak to you, and I suppose it's Jen that's with you. Hello?
Hi, I'm Jenna.
Yes. Oh, nice to meet you, so to speak, over the phone. Yeah, I'll come back perhaps to the previous guest because there's a lot of things that were said that were very interesting. I wanted to be brief, so I just said that I wanted to talk about the absence of God paradox because, in my humble opinion, it's one of the foundations of atheism. And I can try to explain it to you in short length of time because I'm probably limited.
There's a foundation to atheism?
I'm sorry?
There's a foundation to atheism?
Well, yes.
I'm also confused on how can you just describe this absence of God paradox? Because it's not making sense, and it's even making less sense now.
Of course, it's a contracted type of explanation. The main thing, in my opinion, is that with atheism, we don't believe there's a God. And if there is no God, there are some consequences to that. The first consequence is that there are no divine laws. And if there are no divine laws, there are no sins. Because as a definition, a sin is the breach of a divine law.
Phillip?
And if I may kind of explain it schematically,
Phillip?
If God exists, the first thing he did was...
Phillip, I muted you for a second because I think we're having a hard time getting through. I'm going to unmute you now. We'll see if that's working.
Hear me better now?
Well, the thing is that you couldn't hear me. I was trying to ask a question because if there is no God, then there's no divine laws. I agree. That's not a paradox.
No, it's the absence of God paradox. If there is no God, there's automatically a paradox in the sense of it's contrary to religious philosophy.
Sure. Okay. No. Okay. Now, yes, if there is no God, religions are wrong. So what?
Yes.
That's not a paradox. If there is no God, there's no divine law, no sin, religions are wrong. That's just like saying if there's not a fire in the fireplace and the person who imagined there's a fire in the fireplace is wrong. That's not a paradox. So I'm not quite sure what you're getting at.
Well, I might not be using the proper word, but I think you can understand what I'm getting at in the sense that religion is based essentially on the guilt forever syndrome. God made laws. Man is imperfect, therefore he's going to break the first law. He didn't even...
No. You seem to be using a lot of words in kind of problematic ways. First of all, religion isn't one thing. There's not just one religion. And they don't all have the same model. There are religions that don't have a model that matches up at all with what you're talking about men sinning against God. So it seems that you're just talking about a particular...
I'm talking about scriptural religions. And
no. So there are scriptural religions that aren't just Abrahamic religions that don't have the same notion that you're talking about. Religion is too broad of a term to fit the narrow box you're trying to stick it in.
All right, well then let's reduce it to Christianity if that makes it easier.
Sure.
Do you mind if what are we getting to?
Yeah.
I'm trying to establish some fundamental elements of atheism because very often when we're talking about atheism, we get ourselves pulled in to discussions on dead-end elements, and that's...
I would argue that that what you're describing is actually more convoluted and making it worse. Atheism is, I am not convinced there's a God. That's it. Everything else is something else.
Yes, but then also as an atheist, I'm not proving that there is no God. I'm not even going to discuss the existence of a God.
Why not?
Because it's irrelevant.
It's not irrelevant. That's the whole issue, Phillip. If theists believe there are a God and atheists do not believe, if atheists believe there is a God and atheists do not believe there's a God, then the existence of God is the whole fucking ball game.
Well, yes, in a sense, but it's if you're going to discuss the existence or the non-existence of God, you're losing from the very start because there's no way you can prove that there is one.
No, you're not losing. I'm sorry, Phillip. I'm sorry, Phillip, but you're not losing from the very start. The point is not to prove there is no God. The point is to show that there is not sufficient reason to believe in a God.
Yes, but my point is whether there is a God or not, it's irrelevant to the essential question. And the essential question is, does religion, any religion, and more specifically perhaps...
They don't agree with that.
I don't fucking agree with that. I think that, so the whole question, as I pointed out, with regard to theism versus atheism, is one of whether or not you accept that there is a God. Religion is the thing that is irrelevant to this question.
Yes, I understand your point, but hear me out for a moment. If religion does not know a God, if religion does not communicate with a God, it's as if there was no God. So the question is not, is there a God or is there not a God? The essential question is, does religion know its God?
No, you're wrong. No. You're wrong, and you're wrong on so many levels, it's difficult. You're like fractally wrong. Religion isn't a thing. It's not a person. It doesn't have an interaction with. You're using religion as if it's, hey, does religion know there's a God? No, religion doesn't know anything because religion is an abstract construct that is a description that we put on things that people do on behalf of whether or not there's a God. When it comes to theism and atheism, the only issue that matters is there good reason to believe that a God exists? That's it. Religions are irrelevant to this.
Yes, okay, but actually religion is going to base its arguments on its scriptures.
Religion doesn't make arguments, people do.
Yes.
People aren't religion.
I understand that, but
no,
nevertheless...
you don't understand that because you just said religion bases their arguments.
Well, they have to base it on...
No, religion doesn't make arguments. Religion isn't a thinking agent. This is what I'm getting to with the precision of language. You are being incredibly sloppy when you say religion has to base their arguments on something. No. People make arguments. People have beliefs. Whether or not they're warranted is the entire question. And so if people believe there's a God and they can't meet that burden of proof, then belief isn't warranted. And what religion it is doesn't matter. And what other religions may have within their theological constructs doesn't matter. You know, if a religious group believe that two people of the same gender having sex is wrong, that's still what people believe based on something. And ultimately, it gets down to the foundation that those people are pointing to what they think a God believes and they can't demonstrate it.
Yes. Well, in the fact that
religions believe different things. There are different kinds of religions that do different kinds of things. Some have, there are very different kinds of religions, right? You get that, right?
Oh, absolutely. So I'm focusing more on scriptural religions because they always refer to their scriptures.
Which scripture? See, here's the thing. Even though we literally 5 minutes ago just went through this and pointed out how you're once again being sloppy by saying scriptural religions, and then you said, well, let's just deal with Christianity, which, by the way, there's thousands of denominations that identify as Christian as well.
Absolutely.
So yes. Why do you
one of the aberrations of the religion? But
okay.
Let's take, for example, a person that's religious. And
which religion? Which religion?
Religion is a dogma that's
No. I said which religion. You said let's take a person who is religious, and I said which religion.
Let's take Christianity, for example.
Okay, so we're talking about a person who identifies as a Christian. Continue.
Yes, and if I ask them, how do you explain that your religion is true? Or how do you explain that you believe in that specific God rather than another one?
I thought you said questions about the existence of God were irrelevant.
Yes, but I'm trying to figure out why they have this argument.
And so you're asking them about their argument for the existence of God.
So I think that he's not trying to figure out why did you what is the answer. He's trying to figure out why did you come up with this question. Is that kind of what you're saying? You're trying to figure out why they think that they have an answer in the first place?
Well, yes, I'm trying to analyze their point of view, their argument.
Right. We're doing that same thing.
And
okay,
it starts.
I have somebody who's insisting on the fact that Christianity is true because the resurrection, for example, is the authentication of Christianity.
I'd much rather pass on this call and go on to talk to actual Christians so that I can ask them a question, because you've bounced back and forth trying to say that a discussion about the existence of God is irrelevant when I say that's the whole issue, the one and only issue. And then when you get to let me question a Christian, you're essentially asking them, why do you believe there's a God? The thing that you said was irrelevant.
I see your point.
Okay. I'm going to go ahead and move on to some theist callers and stuff and see if maybe we can answer some of those questions or talk about them. But
thanks for calling, Phillip.
Javier in Miami, Florida. How are you?
Hi.
I'm fine.
You're calling to say that secular morality doesn't have an objective basis and is completely subjective.
Well, that is my opinion, but I'm open to being proven wrong.
Okay. So I'm going to guess that you think that the actual foundation for morality is God.
Not so, actually. I don't know how strange this is among... Did you say something?
No, I said, okay, go ahead.
Okay, well, I don't know how common this is among theists, but for me, it's really a matter of technicality, because if God exists and has a moral code, then that would still be subjective. It would just be his,
I would agree with that completely, which is why I don't understand in a secular moral system like the one I would advocate, the actual foundation is objective. It is not subject to opinion. Whether or not you care about that foundation is in fact subjective.
All right. And what is that foundation?
Well-being. We are physical beings in a physical universe, and the physical facts of the universe dictate the consequences of our action to determine whether or not those consequences are in our best interest or not. And the only objection is, well, why should I care about our well-being? And the answer is there's no objective imperative for you to care about well-being, but I do. And as far as I can tell, so does everybody else, with a handful of exceptions. And once you agree that I care about well-being, now you're able to assess the consequences of actions with respect to a goal, and that assessment is non-subjective.
Okay, so just to make sure I understand clearly, you're saying that once you have a standard like well-being set in place, you can measure whether something is moral or amoral or immoral relative to that standard.
Yes.
Oh, all right then. Now, I see what you're saying, but what I'm saying is that there's no objective reason to. I mean, you have reason. I'm sure people have reasons, but there's no objective reason to have chosen that standard of well-being. You see what I mean?
I literally said that like a minute before you did. And there's also no objective reason to care about whether or not there's a God who claims to be a standard, or who somebody else thinks is a standard. So you're not there's no problem with secular morality that is solved in any way by appealing to theism. Because you can say, there's no objective reason why somebody should care about well-being. And I can say, yes, and there's no objective reason why someone should care about what you think your God wants.
Okay, I understand. I understand. Thank you for your explanation.
Sure.
Have you changed your mind?
Well, did it change my? Oh yeah. I understand the concept right now. Yeah,
cool.
I do understand. Thank you.
Awesome. Thanks, Javier.
All right, appreciate it.
Good job, Matt.
Take care.
Look at that.
I honestly, and I appreciate that call a lot, but I mean, I genuinely think people make morality more difficult than it needs to be. And it is in part because religions have muddied the waters surrounding morality by claiming this is the from on high objective standard. Well, it's not really. It is, no matter which religion you pick any one of them. Why did you pick that one over another one? And if you can't, even if you could demonstrate, even if there was a God and that God showed up right here next to me and next to you at the same time, was talking out of both of them. So let's make this just over the top, seemingly miraculous. And that God said, I am the ultimate foundation of all of morality. I can still sit here and say, I don't accept that.
Yeah.
You're going to have to convince me. And so you get into two lines of thought when you talk to theists advocating for God. One is divine command theory, that whatever God says is moral is moral. But that means that if God says murder is moral, then it becomes moral. And if God can't change what morality is, then God isn't the foundation of morality. God is just a messenger telling you what morality is, in which case it should be something that we should also be able to discover on our own. It's, I use chess as the prime example, because there is nothing in the universe that dictated that chess or the rules of chess needed to be what they are. But once we establish the game and the rules and the boundary, we can then begin to evaluate different moves to determine if they are more consistent with the goal of not losing. And it doesn't matter. You could say, well, chess is very subjective. Well, no, it's actually not. It's arbitrary in the sense that the rules don't have any necessary requirement. But once you have the rules and you're playing the game, then you're either making good moves, bad moves, or neutral moves with regard to the goal.
Right.
The same thing is true. Once we find ourselves in this game of life, there are physical rules. It doesn't matter where they came from. It doesn't matter unless we find out that they can change, but you're playing within the scope right now. And so when somebody says, secular morality is inferior, because the one thing I'd love for everybody to do, every single time somebody says secular morality is inferior to theistic morality, because, take that thing that they say after the because and really sit down and evaluate whether or not their proposed solution to that problem actually solves it. Because in all the years that I've been having these discussions, not a single time has anybody proposed an objection to secular morality that was in any way solved by appealing to a God. As a matter of fact, most of the time it makes it worse. Because if we look at human well-being, it's not well defined. We don't necessarily know everything about it, but it's this process of learning, just like we haven't solved chess. If we look at that, we are at least pointing to something outside of ourselves that is not subject to a mind. Like, it's not a matter of opinion about whether or not I die if I fall into a volcano, an active volcano, I guess, with lava. That's not in my best interest. It's not in your best interest to inject disinfectant. We know that, no matter which authority declares it to be the case. Now, if you want to come in and say, but at least in my case, I have this standard outside of us who knows more than us, but you have no demonstration that God is actually caring about what's in our best interest or doing things that advocate for that. As a matter of fact, the evidence goes against that. So what problem is being solved by appealing to a God? In the same way that you can reject my standard of well-being, I can reject your standard of Yahweh, Jehovah, whatever you're pointing to. And I can do it with better reason. Because if you point to like the Bible, where the Bible has this women as a second tier citizen and slavery and genocide, all of these kind of advocated by God, I can point to that and say, I know that to be immoral with regard to my foundation of well-being. You also would, under every other circumstance, think that that's immoral. And the only reason you think it's moral is because you think it came from a God, which means you're no longer caring about what's actually moral. You just care about what God says. And you have no evidence that God exists or has ever said anything. So it's made even worse, because the thing you're appealing to, at least I can point to physics and chemistry and what we know about health and things like that and say, hey, here's the best evidence, and this is what the best evidence is pointing to. Theists can't do that at all when it comes to a God.
from my experience, there are, and actually when I was a theist, I didn't know anything about those subjects. So they were just kind of hypothetical to me. They were just kind of like this subject that people did. And that was just for scientists and smart people.
Okay.
You know, like, I'm going to be a mom, you know, I don't need that. And so I just never touched it. And so it didn't make sense to me that people actually did have answers to things, because I just kind of went with whatever felt right. So I thought that everybody else did the same thing. So I think that the simplest way to break it down to me is that you're the one that's interpreting all of it. So whatever it is that you're being told is moral, whatever it is, you're the one that's believing it or not. So all of this good stuff that you're doing, you know, these good deeds that come from your heart, that's coming from you. That's not because God inspired you. That's you're the one doing it all the time. That really helps me. I don't know if that helps anybody else.
All right. Do you have a preference of who we take next?
I thought that, was it Ernesto or Johan? Ernesto. 16?
Ernesto, line 16. Wow, it's wild having this many lines. Ernesto in Atlanta, Georgia. You're on with Jenna and Matt. How are you?
Yes, hello. I'm doing great. So I want to get straight to my point. So as I told the screener in a very brief statement, my family's Catholic, very devout Catholics. I recently married the woman that I love. She's a Catholic as well. And everything was fine until we start finding ourselves, I guess, just in conflict with our beliefs spiritually. I'm guessing.
Both of you together?
She's not here at the moment. No, I'm here at the house by myself.
Well, I'm just curious. Are you both questioning together, or is it just you and you're keeping it?
It's so I'm not saying I'm an atheist, because I think that requires more knowledge. I felt personally it requires me to have a certain knowledge in order for me to fully say, hey, I'm an atheist. Because honestly, as I stand right now in my beliefs, if somebody questioned me or pushed me further, why are you an atheist? Why are you an atheist? Or, you don't believe in God. Why? I feel so insecure. I feel like I don't have the proper knowledge. But I know when I hear Matt or you speak or talk heathen, everything just makes sense and it speaks to me, and it's just further developed my decisions to be critical about anything I question now.
I totally get it. When Matt asked me if I wanted to try out being on this show, I said, sure, give me, we'll study for a couple months and, I'll study the atheism and the logic stuff so that I can actually be on the show. And he's like, yeah, how about Sunday? So I was like, what? I don't have to learn a bunch of things. Like, what am I going to talk about? He wanted me to share my experience.
Baptism through fire.
Atheism is the absence of a belief in a God. And I didn't have that belief anymore. I had shed it about 6 months before he asked me. So I was brand new and just as confused as you are. And when you were raised in religion, I was raised in Catholicism as well. You are trained, you're taught this is how you know this and this is how you do that. And everything is laid out for you in this easy way to follow, right? But then when you find out, hold on, maybe that's not true, maybe it's all wrong. So then what? Where do I start now, right? So it's mind-blowing and it's confusing and it's terrifying. And just remember, atheism doesn't have any requirements, anything. It's just, hold on, I don't believe that.
Right.
That's all.
And as far as you saying, you get to a point where you're just like, well, what is the answer to this? Or why isn't this lining up to what I'm feeling? It's just not making any more sense.
So the key
I remember
like this and keep studying, because there are things you can study that can help things make more sense. Physics, astronomy, astrology, or all the science subjects. there are ways
One
to
thing,
figure this out.
absolutely. And one thing I tell my wife, I'd say, look, because she's very, I mean, obviously when we dated and when we met, you know, the religion thing was never brought up because I knew personally already through my struggles what that would do. So I don't know if for better or for worse, I didn't mention it. We didn't really talk about it, but I knew she was Catholic. I was Catholic before. And, you know, we never really got into any kind of real spiritual thing because I just guess she assumed that, you know, we weren't going to be in conflict. But however, 2 years later, when, you know, I'm becoming more open and or you know, he sees me, you know, watching Matt Dillahunty, this show, and she's just like, what are you listening to? And I'm just like, oh, you know, before I've had to tell her, like, if for nothing else, it's for the debate, for the rational. It's just I don't know. It's like fresh air. There's so much other, you know, stuff that I've been wasting my time on, and you know, a conflict starts that, well, I don't want you to hear that around me anymore, or blah blah. But I'm trying to basically, what is a way? Because we do love after we do fight, and unfortunately, you know, we tempers flare. I'm still working on myself and how. You know, how to deal with my you know, when I feel attacked. I just want to be able to tell her, like, you know, it's not me being overbearing with you. I feel like it's in the other way. It's like I can coexist with you in a sense because you're my wife. I want to be with you the rest of my life. But I feel she is more of the militant one, and it's just like. But I feel like that's in society, like, you know, once you reveal, and we're Mexican, by the way, I know it probably has nothing to do, but in our culture, that's even looked as more frowned upon because now my mother cried, everybody, you know, it becomes so heightened.
Yeah.
Just went on there.
Just to let you know that I think I understand you. When I was in high school, I was the white girl that hung out with all the Mexican girls. I loved the culture. I loved the language. And so I'd go home and hang out with them and just try to learn Spanish from them. And so I've learned a lot about the culture through families and friends. So I understand what you mean about kind of the intenseness of it. My family was actually the same way. And so I'm happy for you that you have come to this point, because that's such a great feeling, and I still feel that even though I'm about a year past. Like, that's not going to go away. It'll ease and it'll get easier to handle as you learn more and things make more sense. But I want to ask, how long have you been married, if you don't mind me asking?
2 years now. 2
years, and so she's not questioning at all, and she's kind of confused why you are, right?
Absolutely. That's exactly how you could sum it up.
Okay. I want to say, first of all, that I am not a therapist. I am just a fellow friend that's been through something similar, and I've been married 3 years. So I'm in a very similar situation. My husband luckily found out that he was an atheist after I did. So I was very, very lucky. What I'm finding is more common is that the partner is not on the same page. And so my personal opinion is that what I said earlier is that each case is different. Each person is different, and it's going to be different for you. And I don't know your relationship. If this means so much to her that she can't accept that you have a different way of looking at how the world is, like, that's very difficult to cohabitate with somebody who doesn't look at the world the same way as you. So absolutely. I'm going to let you know that will make the rest of your life difficult unless one of you changes and agrees with the other person. And it's going to be even more confusing if you bring kids into that, because they're like, well, actually, I mean, I'm not worried about the kids. But
can I interrupt for just 1 second?
Go ahead.
You mentioned kids, so I don't want to forget about this. I don't want to be rude, but okay. So let's say we have a baby girl. She's about to be 1 year old. Okay. Mm-hmm. Before she was born, when I found out the news, thank you. when I found out she was, my wife was pregnant. This goes back to when I was little, or when I first started having my doubts. There was always this inkling in the back of my head that I said, I don't know if I just made myself believe this. I don't know if just through blind faith. I would just constantly tell myself, no matter how much I doubt everything, I feel like everybody's told me this. My mother told me this, my grandfather, my grandmother. When you witness the birth of your child, your mind is going to completely change. So in a way, I always held on to that. So fast forward to when my baby was born and I was in the room, I was like, here it is. It's coming. It's coming. It's coming. That feeling, it's finally going to come. And nothing happened. Don't get me wrong. I felt complete overjoy. I felt complete joy, complete happiness. It was the best day of my life. But I just said, it's like it didn't come. That moment of when my mother, everybody told me, you'll see Jesus. You'll experience God. For something so beautiful that's being created. It's like, no, I just, my wife pushed the baby out. It was a beautiful experience, but it wasn't that. I don't know if you
want to take this back?
Well, did we?
No. I think he's still there. Okay. You're going to have to talk to your wife. And I don't know if he's still there. In my opinion, you're going to have to talk to her. Okay. Yeah. Keep communication open with her. Keep talking to her. Be honest with her. Tell her how you see things. Because just because you changed doesn't mean that you've lost the right to have a new view, to have a view. You have changed, and that's going to happen in relationships and marriages. That's just something that's going to happen. So this is your first opportunity to figure out, can you handle this? Can you work through this together? And I just want to let you know, and I hate saying this, there is a possibility that it won't.
Yeah, I'm aware of that. One last thing before I go. Is Matt on the line?
Yeah.
Oh, hey, Matt. So about a week ago, I ran into a video of yours. It was the best of Matt Dillahunty compilation, 2 hours, and I sat there and listened to it. And
I'm sorry.
No, it was amazing. It
was me too.
It was just laughter, not laughter as in mocking, but laughter and what these callers would say. It was just like, are you fucking kidding me? In some ways, people really think like this. But anyways, so one thing that I just want to personally thank you for, and it's such a simple thing, but when you talk about demonstrable evidence, like, you always make the example of you drop a pin, you see it fall. I can demonstrate it. Anybody can demonstrate that. I just want to say that to me, that made so much of an impact in my life and everything that I've looked at after that. It's like, holy shit, like it was just crazy.
Yeah. Oh, thanks. I'm glad. If anything, any of us have ever done have been useful to other people, we appreciate it. And you're far from alone. So thank you for saying so. And, keep communicating with your wife. And, there's no guarantees about what's going to. Hell, I'm divorced, but I'm still really good friends with my ex-wife. So, and we were both non-believers the whole time. So you never know what's going to happen. But it can't. The communication is always going to be the best tool.
Absolutely. And
I want to add
thank you guys. Yes, ma'am. Go ahead.
Thank you, Ernesto. But I just want to add to people. There have been many people who have called to ask, "Oh, does this actually work? Like, do people actually ever change their mind?" Hi, Ernesto.
Yeah.
Thank you for calling.
Yeah. We'll talk to you later. The truth is that people change their mind all the time. Jenna changed her mind. I changed my mind. Most of the people involved with the ACA have changed their mind. Everybody in the Clergy Project has changed their mind, and that's a collection of pastors. Then you have groups like Recovering from Religion who are talking to people on a daily basis who are finding their way out of these beliefs. It does happen. Oh, and just before anybody suggests otherwise, is it possible that some atheists might eventually become theists of some stripe? Yeah, it is. Unfortunately, not one of them has ever been able to give a good reason for why they made that change. It's a curiosity to me to find people saying, "Oh, I was an atheist and a skeptic." Because first of all, when you say you were a skeptic, my question is, why aren't you a skeptic now?
Right.
Because
why were you?
Yeah. You used to be a skeptic and now you're not. it's one of those things where, yes, change happens and people can believe things and people can disbelieve things for bad reasons and for good reasons. I'm looking for good reasons to believe in something and constantly pointing out when somebody says, oh, I've got a good reason, and then they give a reason and it's crap.
Yeah.
But on that front, so there was not a call that you just missed. We've got Amene in Texas wants to tell us why he believes in God. How are you, Amene? Am I pronouncing that correctly, Amene?
Hello?
Yes, you have. You have pronounced it right. Yes, sir.
Okay, you're on the air with Jenna Belk. You're please tell us why you believe in a God and which God it would help.
Okay, thank you for having me, Mr. Matt and Gina.
Yeah.
Yes, hi.
Well, I'll try to make it easy for you. I'm talking about the God of the Old Testament.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, the reason I believe is actually it took me a while to believe, to make sure to believe. And it involves a great deal of research.
Can I ask you, hold on, why did it take a while for you to believe? What does that mean? It took a while. Why would it take you a while to believe in a God? Is that something you're trying to do? Are you trying to believe in a God initially? Is that why?
No, I was born in a Christian family.
You were born Christian. Oh, okay. Okay, so I'm sorry. So you pretty much believed in a God from the get-go?
Yeah, I've been believing for a long time. And then when I get older, I would like to know exactly what I'm believing on. So I start doing my research.
Mm-hmm. What did you find?
One of the research is there are more than 5 billion people believe in his existence.
Mm-hmm.
And then this includes highly respected scientists, philosophers, rich and poor, black, yellow, white color, whatever color it is, men and women.
So you believe it because they believe it?
Let me finish up, okay. Not only that.
Well, hang on.
No one.
Hang on, Amene. Amene?
Yes, sir.
We're trying to understand. And so the easiest way for us to do this is to ask clarifying questions. It's not really conductive, or it's not really a good idea for us to just let you just keep talking if we're not convinced that we're getting anywhere. So you're advocating for the God of the Old Testament. And so far, your claim is that it took you a long time and a lot of research. And what you found is that there are a bunch of smart people who believe in God.
That's one of them.
Okay, that's one of them. Is that the reason? Is it the strongest reason? Is it even a good reason? For example, is it possible that a bunch of smart people believe something that isn't true?
That's the amazing thing, which makes me keep researching. And then when I do my research,
hang on. I asked a question, and your answer to it was, "That's the amazing thing." I'm looking for an answer. This is a yes or no question.
Yes, of course. Both sides, there are believers, there are non-believers, highly educated, scientists, like I said, philosophers, and all kinds of...
But no. It doesn't... So, because there are a bunch of smart people who believe something and a bunch of smart people who don't believe that, what does that tell us?
That tells us at least something must be right, something must be wrong. So I have to do my further research to reach in one point.
Well, so no, it doesn't tell us that something must be right. That's the whole question is this right? So you don't get to just say, oh, I'm researching God to find out whether or not God's real, and then say, there's all these smart people who believe it. But that doesn't tell you anything. It doesn't tell you how likely it is that they're correct.
Right, like when you're building your pile of evidence for God, there's these different pieces, and what we're trying to do is break it down and say, okay, what's this piece? What's this piece? What's this piece? And how did we get there? Right.
Yeah.
So we're looking at this one piece and saying that's not a very good piece.
It's not even relevant.
We can't be in the basket, right? So we're kicking it out and saying, okay, now what do we have left? What are your pieces?
What's the evidence for God?
Okay, now. And then, okay, now, can you hear me?
Do you agree that that was a bad piece and we're throwing that out and saying that's not a good reason to believe in a God? Do you agree with that?
No, okay, not only that, no one, even the people.
No. Hang on.
No one, okay.
I've muted you because you are not listening to us. We are asking questions to try to get to the truth. And every time one of us asks a question, it's like you've got a script in front of you, or you've taken an improv course that taught you that you should just say yes and. When you need to actually take a moment and think about the question that's being asked and try to answer it, because this is not a forum for you just to call in and preach. We're looking for you to explain why you are convinced the Old Testament God is real, and you've started with because a bunch of people believe it. And we're pointing out that that's not a good reason and asking if you agree. Are you there?
I am here. Can you hear me? Do I have a very, very bad connection, I believe?
Yeah, it's a very bad connection. I'm having difficulty understanding you. So do you agree that whether or not there's a God, the number of people or how smart some people are who believe it has no bearing on whether or not there's a God?
Yeah, if we take like Professor Richard Dawkins, who wrote a book called The God Delusion, and the Professor Sam Harris.
Yes.
Professor Sam Harris, who wrote the book called The End of Faith.
Okay.
And then the Professor Lawrence wrote a book, The Universe from Nothing.
Okay.
None of them said and claimed there is no God.
Hang on. What was that one more time at the end?
Okay. These philosophers.
You said none of them said what?
Okay, so first of all, stop. Let's just stop, because as the only person in this discussion who's been on stage with all three people that you mentioned multiple times, A, none of them are philosophers.
Yeah.
B,
no, I'm saying professors.
Okay. B, you seem to suggest that all of them have reached a faith-based conclusion that there is no God, and I don't think that's fair. And C, none of them are here to defend themselves, and what they say isn't relevant to this discussion about why you believe there's a God. So maybe throw Dawkins out, throw Harris out, throw Krauss out, talk to the two people who you're actually on the phone with, and explain why you believe there's a God.
Okay, I know they are not here, but you can research on that, and I think you know that none of them said and claim there is no God. Even yourself,
I know that.
Claim there is no God.
I know that. I'm friends with them. I've been on stage with them. None of that is relevant to this discussion. What difference does it? What difference does it make whether or not Sam Harris asserts there isn't a God? How does that impact your belief that there is?
Even yourself, Mr. Matt Dillahunty, you never claim that there is no God. You never claim that.
Right.
You see, the saddest thing is, are you with me? The saddest thing is, can you hear me?
Yes.
Unfortunately.
Okay, the saddest thing is, only the deceived followers are the ones who claim that they are atheists. If you ask them outside, are you atheists? They say yes. And then I try to tell them, even Mr. Matt Dillahunty never claimed that there is no God. Why you guys are saying there is no God?
Do you think that atheists are all saying we have proof that there is no God? Do you believe that that's what we're saying?
I didn't believe that, but the rest of the people who are following you guys, they think you say there is no God.
Stop. I'm gonna give you one last chance, Amene, and then I'm going on to somebody else, because I genuinely don't give a fuck what Sam Harris said. I don't give a fuck what some fan of the show told you. I'm sitting here telling you I'm an atheist. I am not convinced there is a God. You are convinced there is a God of the Old Testament. Are you going to defend that, or are you going to keep talking about what some atheist said somewhere? Because none of that is evidence for God. One last chance before I move on. Evidence for a God. Go.
Evidence for God.
Well, actually, we already have a piece of evidence for a God. We haven't finished that yet. We haven't figured out if he agrees.
I don't think you're
Which one?
Okay.
You said,
I think, Mr. Matt, I have to have a YouTube program just to explain this. This is a big subject, you know.
Okay.
And I listen to you guys.
Program and find a way to explain it. I've dropped the call. We're moving on to something else. Because if you're going to call into a call-in show and say that you believe the Old Testament God is real, and when you're asked to demonstrate it, your answer is, hey, atheists tell me this, or atheists tell me that, or a bunch of smart people believe this, or a bunch of smart people believe that. And when we put your feet to the fire, your response is, well, I would need to make my own YouTube channel because there's just too much to go into. Then go fucking do it and stop wasting time on ours. I don't understand someone who would call in to say, hey, I'd like to demonstrate why I believe in God, but it would take me too long. So I would need to go make a YouTube channel to do that.
Maybe he just realized that he doesn't have an answer.
Yeah, you think?
Have you seen Hunter?
Have I seen Hunter?
Number 10.
Oh, we can do that.
Yeah.
There's Hunter in Texas seeking advice. Had to give a eulogy at a Christian funeral. How you doing, Hunter?
Good. How are y'all doing today?
Good. Thanks.
Awesome. Well, I guess I'll try and give like a quick little 30, 40-second backstory to get quick on here. So basically, unfortunately, in November, my grandma, who had been on hospice for a couple months, passed away. And for various reasons, I ended up being the one to write and give the eulogy at her funeral. Mm-hmm. And my entire family is Christians. And I had secretly, at about the age between 13 and 17, started moving out of that. And I've secretly been an atheist since I was about 17, but never told anybody. And I basically had to give a Christian eulogy to about 40, 50 family members over the course of about an hour and a half.
Why?
And it's really been, the morality of that has just been, it's been tugging at me. I feel like a bad person for doing some of that.
Well, my immediate question is, you said you had to give a Christian eulogy, and my question was why?
I guess my only good answer for that would be that seemed to be unsaid, but that was what was expected of me.
That's tough.
If somebody told me, like, let's say a relative of mine dies, and they tell me that they'd like me to come up and say a few words, my answer is going to be yes, unless I don't feel like it. I was happy when my last grandmother died. My brother went up and gave a eulogy, and I did not, because I thought my brother's was outstanding, and I trust him and I love him, and he gave something that in many ways could have come from both of us. But if anybody came up to me and said, hey, we'd really like you to say a few words, and I felt comfortable doing it, I would do it. And if they said, we want you to give a Christian eulogy, I'd tell them to go fuck themselves.
Well, and I think the part that would have been different between me and you in that situation is that nobody in my family knows that I'm an atheist. So that was kind of where the conflict came.
And by the way, I'm not faulting you. I'm pointing out a difference of when you say you were required or asked to or expected to give a Christian eulogy, it's entirely because they think they're talking to someone. You haven't been open yet about who you are. And that is entirely your call, and you're the one that gets to decide whether or not you're going to do that. But the framing then is, more honestly, you chose to give a eulogy as the character they think you are rather than as what you really think. And you're struggling with, was this a moral decision or not?
That's 100% accurate, yeah.
Yeah, I don't think either one of us are going to beat you up for continuing to, keep up the illusion that you think is necessary, because each person has to decide for themselves whether or not they're going to risk being open about who they are. And it doesn't matter if this is about religion or sexuality or whatever else. I mean, I have a number of friends and former partners who are sex workers whose family don't know that they're sex workers. I would never fault them for keeping up that illusion. It's a little harder in a funeral setting. It's not like you're going to have to say, back when I was working in porn, or back when I was doing that type of thing doesn't come up. But it's the same thing. You decide how open you're going to be about who you are, and if that means that you have to put on airs, then you're the one that decides whether or not it's consistent. Is it immoral? I think there are situations where it can be, but I'm not convinced that the situation you're describing is one. There are good reasons for some people to stay in various closets, and it's because the consequences of being out are not something that they are in a position to accept or deal with at all. And this is why I would recommend you calling Recovering from Religion as well, to talk to people there. There's also the Secular Therapist Project. There's counselors. There's the Discord server, stuff like that. If you're just looking for hey, I wonder what Matt and Jenna think about this. Well, I've told you what I think, and that I would have done something different, but our situations are different. And I'm not going to sit here and say, gosh, that Hunter guy, how could he dare do something like that? I think you're fine doing something like that. And I'll let Jenna chime in on what she thinks.
It's my opinion that if you feel guilty, then I wouldn't do something like that again.
Yeah, and I definitely have been feeling a lot of guilt, internally feeling a lot of guilt about it.
And I would say that that's probably tied to the fact that all of us, I think, all of us who care about being who we genuinely are, would prefer to be surrounded by people who love us for who we are and not who we pretend to be or who they think we are. And in a situation like that, it just turns everything up to 10, because now you're up here essentially playing a character in a situation where what people would expect is genuineness. This is how this person's life impacted my life. This is how I feel about the loss. This is what my life is going to be going forward without them. And all of that is expected to be genuine. And when you are put in a position where you're essentially pretending, it almost be like me being forced to give a eulogy for somebody that I despised, where I had to, there's a taboo that we shouldn't speak ill of the dead. And I'm like, okay, the only reason for me not to speak ill of the dead is because I value the people left behind and what their views of that person are. And maybe then we fall back on the other adage where if you can't say anything nice, don't say anything at all type of thing.
Well, they can't say anything to defend themselves.
Yeah, it's certainly not fair to them. It's not necessarily fair to their loved ones. However, if there was someone I despised, and there's only a handful of people on the planet that I actively despise, and one of them died, and somebody said, hey, can you say something nice about that person? I would say no. No, I can't.
Well, and sorry to butt in here, but just to go back to what you said a second ago, I don't feel bad at all for going up there and talking about how much I miss her and how much everybody else does and why we loved her. It's more so the part where I had to come up with Bible verses and lead everybody in prayer twice. That's kind of more of the thing that it made me feel like I was being inauthentic to everybody. And that's what I've been struggling with.
There is a way out of that, if it happens again, that can be honest and can be understood. My parents know I'm an atheist, as we've talked about before. But there was a period of time where they didn't know. And if I think back to that time where I wasn't necessarily out, if I had been asked to give a eulogy, I would have either bowed out of it and said, no, I'm not comfortable doing that. Or I would have given a eulogy that did not address God or prayers or anything else. If I was asked, hey, will you lead everybody in prayer? I would say, I'm not comfortable doing that right now, which is true. And depending on denominations, me as a former Southern Baptist, I wish I had somebody got me a Jesus hat and a Darwin hat so I could swap them when I wanted to put them on here. But there's something that was true before I was an outspoken atheist, and that is I was not comfortable or confident enough in my walk with Jesus or my take on God, or maybe I was angry at God, or maybe I was confused, where it would not have been right for me to lead anybody in prayer. And generally, if you frame it that way, nobody's going to go, oh my God, Hunter's an atheist. They're going to say, he's dealing with someone and he's not comfortable with this, and they know not to push.
I really like that answer. I kind of wish that I'd called a couple months ago back in November when this happened, before I went up there then. But yeah, definitely that happens to me in the future, I'll probably kind of more go along those lines.
Well, let's hope you don't have to deal with any more death in the near future. It's a frustrating time, and it's a confusing thing, and it's one thing that puts people who are closeted about their non-belief in an incredibly uncomfortable situation. And so just know that you don't owe anybody an explanation for who you are, and you don't owe anybody a eulogy, and you don't owe anybody the eulogy of their preference. And if somebody says, hey, will you lead everybody in prayer? You can just, not today. And maybe they're going to think you're too distraught or whatever else. And it's all fine. Just don't beat yourself up too much, because what you did was do something that you felt was the most caring response you could engage in for the people who were there. And while I can't abide liars and fakes when they have other options, I fully recognize that can't be done as a universal. You have to acknowledge that there are situations where the compassionate thing to do is something that would be wrong in some other circumstance.
I can't.
Well, yeah, because
something like somebody being in the closet with lying.
Yeah, well, I agree with you. And the only reason it felt like lying to me was just because of how open I was about doing it. Standing up there in front of like 60 people. That's why it felt like a lie. And the only reason I am holding it back is because, right now I'm 20. I'm in college, living at home until the fall, and I didn't want to cause conflicts. So that was my main reason.
I fully accept that. And that's why one of the things about morality is that it's more complicated. Well, it's simpler than some people make it, but there are situations that make things more complicated, where you can't just say, oh, it's wrong to steal. Because then you look at something like after Hurricane Katrina, where people are, stealing stuff, bread that's going to go bad so that they can eat and not die. It may be the most moral action they can take. And you do something that you're the only one wrestling with this, by the way. And that says a lot about who you are. That you are somebody who would much prefer to be known, loved, and appreciated for who you actually are, rather than who you need to pretend to be, given all the things right now. I would cling to that part of yourself, and there's going to come a day when you're going to say, enough is enough. I'm tired of being somebody I'm not for other people, and I need to be me for me. And you may find out that it doesn't go as badly as you might suspect, but you're the only one that can make that decision.
Yeah, I totally agree with you, man. Also, I know y'all might be wanting to get on to another call before the show ends, but can I take like 20, 30 seconds to say something real quick?
Sure.
So I just wanted to say, first off, this call has been the most amazing therapeutic thing it ever could have been for me. Y'all have no idea. And Matt, I just wanted to say thanks to you personally. And back when I was about 13 or so, I ran across a video on YouTube about you just going off on Christians. And back then I was a Christian. I thought it was hilarious. I watched the whole thing. And that led to kind of me diving in the rabbit hole and watching the shows. And then I actually read the whole Bible, became an atheist. And I just wanted to let y'all know, even though some of y'all's calls, it kind of seems like you want to bang your head on the wall and you're not productive, like y'all do make a difference. And so I just want to say I appreciate you both. And also I'll be down in Austin sometime in the summer. Love to go play CA one time. Y'all are amazing. So thank you.
Awesome.
Hopefully we'll be open again.
Yeah. Thank you very much,
Yeah.
Hunter. Take care of yourself through this.
Thank you, Hunter.
Appreciate it. Yeah, it's all right. We've got, holy crap, it's almost 6.
Do you think we have time for...
How did that happen?
Was it 61? Oh, no, that one's gone. What do you think?
Let's go with Wilbur in New York. How you doing, Wilbur? You're on with Jenna and Matt.
Hey, how's it going?
Hello.
I've got weird audio issues and video artifacting, but it says here you wanted to know what's the explanation for people experiencing the Holy Spirit.
Yes, I used to be a Christian, and I used to experience this. I used to roll around on the floor, speak in tongues, shake.
Well, what do you think the explanation is?
I don't know. I was there was one explanation. It's like being in a concert. Like, you feed off the music, the lighting, the energy, and you just want to believe something so much that you make it real.
Can I speak from my experience?
Yes.
So I was a Catholic, and I don't know if all Catholics do this, but in my parish, we had what's called adoration, where it's kind of a time where everybody is silent, and what they say is the Eucharist, the actual body of Christ is exposed. And this is like this huge thing, and it doesn't happen all the time. And so they put it in this gold thing, and they carry it around, and then they put it on the altar, and then they leave it there. And sometimes it's for an hour, sometimes it's all day. It kind of depends on what's going on. But the point of it is to be quiet and reverent and respect that Jesus is in the room, and you're supposed to feel his presence. And what I will tell you is that I thought I did, because I'd walk in, and it's eerie when you walk into a place that's normally different, and when it's completely altered, when it just kind of felt weird. But I kept going, and then I'm seeing everybody with their heads down, and I'm doing the same things. And what happens is sometimes when you get quiet and you just kind of still your mind, you actually change your brain waves. And this is from what I've learned, that it just kind of creates a different feeling. Kind of like when I meditate for 10 minutes or so, when I'm done, I feel like I took a 30-minute nap, because I've slowed down my brainwaves enough to kind of feel different. And so that's what I think.
I was talking to my cousin about that. He told me that people who's been getting high like that since the beginning of the world, basically, like with meditation, the Buddhist monks and all of that.
Yeah.
I think that's a real thing. And you can do it without God.
Yeah, the short answer to your question, what's the explanation for people experiencing the Holy Spirit, is we don't know. But what we do know is that quality of experience can be achieved in many different ways. And we know that it can be achieved from music, both secular and religious. And so if there's music going on at the moment where people are experiencing it, maybe it's more likely that this is something that music does to people. Maybe it's more likely that this is something that being in a group of people who appear to be experiencing something does to people. There's a book from the 19th century called Extraordinary Popular Delusions and the Madness of Crowds that looks into this from a lot of different experiences, voodoo practitioners, and it, as far as I can tell, the thing, when I was in church and everybody else around me was experiencing something and I was experiencing it too, the elation, the goosebumps, the feeling of joy and everything else, everybody around me was convinced that they were experiencing the Holy Spirit. I had no explanation for this other than that, so I went with it, which is what I believe all the rest of them are doing. If you take a look at what's actually happening, we are social creatures. We are impacted by music. We are impacted by community. We are impacted by authority figures. And, how many times have you seen the self-help gurus up on stage telling someone what they need to do to live their life, and how much better does it feel that, I don't have to worry about it anymore. I don't have to sit here and think about it anymore. Somebody here that's telling me what's going on. That makes you feel good. I have had some experiences that were similar to what I would describe as being filled with the Holy Ghost, from secular music, from art, from drugs, from sex, from really good meals. And if we have all of those non-religious reasons for us to experience a certain type of thing, then it seems that if somebody wants to claim, no, what's happening in church goes beyond these naturalistic explanations and is therefore necessarily the Holy Spirit. They have a whole bunch of work to do to prove that, and nobody's ever done it.
Yeah. Yeah, I have a quick story of how I became a agnostic atheist.
Do we have time for a story, Matt?
We're actually out of time, and I just let the other callers know that we're going to have to stop. But I appreciate you, Wilbur. Thanks for calling in. I'm sorry that we don't have a better explanation, but I think we're as close to the right track as we're going to get now.
But I do want to add real quick that you had a really good answer about how it's different for everybody. And we've talked about this earlier, that everybody's got different reasons for doing things. And so when you ask a very general question, like, why do theists believe in God? Or why do atheists not believe in God? It's different, it's different for everyone.
Yep.
Yeah.
On that note, thanks a lot for the call, Wilbur, and thanks to everybody else who called and the people who patiently waited only to get dropped in the queue right when we hit 6 o'clock. First of all, Jenna, you're wonderful.
Oh, thank you. You too.
So we were dealing with some technical issues, and on my end, like all of the audio sounded choppy, which added to my frustration. But I'm being told by Vern that may not be in the final audio copy because our tech crew is amazeballs, and it may just be problems on my side of the internet, even though I've got gigabit and everything's working. But it was nice to know that I could, have Greg switch the shot to you. I could try and talk to them, solve stuff, listen, and go, damn, she's saying stuff that I would have said and stuff better than what I would have said. And it was, I enjoy the fact that not only do we have an amazing tech crew, and we can show the crew cam while I'm talking about this if we want to. There is the tech crew, all of them remoting in and waving their own cameras. We have an amazing tech crew that is making the show continue to go. And there's going to be hiccups. And there's going to be audio delays. And I'm going to have to make more judicious use of the mute button. And I don't know, maybe I'll break my own rules and have a drink before the show goes on just to stay mellow. But I really appreciate all these people who are working and doing everything they can while we're under stay-at-home orders, coming up with solutions for all kinds of stuff. And it's just, I love the 15 years that I've spent with the show. I'm as enthused about it as ever, especially when I didn't even have to put pants on to do the show. I did put pants on. Oh, and by the way, for people in the UK, I'm talking about trousers, not panties, not knickers. But it's lots of fun. I want you to take care of yourself, and I want all of our viewers and listeners to take care of yourself and try. I know it's hard. I am the poster king for frustration. Not for anger, the way some people say, but frustration happens all the time. And we are in an incredibly frustrating period of time where we're social distancing, where people are in isolation. It's taxing on finances. It's taxing on physical health. It's taxing on mental health. And I just hope that people out there realize we're not just keeping this show going so that we can have yet another argument about the existence of God. But these discussions, these topics, get to the heart of who we are. They get to the heart of the decisions that we make. And when there are throngs of religious people out there saying, nope, I'm protected by the blood of Jesus. We're going to gather together anyway. And then in a church of 80 people, 43 people show up with coronavirus, demonstrating as if it needed to happen that they weren't as protected as they were. I'm reminded of something that my dad told me a long time ago. And I had asked him a question, which I've asked on the show before, and I feel like I'm cheating a little, giving the theists a potential answer. But I had asked people, if in fact you believe that there's a God who loves you and cares about you and who answers prayer and can heal you of any disease, why would you have health insurance and why would you ever go to a doctor? And my dad said something along the lines of, God gave us brains, and he gave us brains to understand how our bodies work and medical stuff works. And he expected us to take advantage of that and listen to the doctors and seek expert advice because God's not here to do everything for us. So for the theists that have decided that they can just go ahead and blow coronavirus away, or that they're washed in the blood and are protected, let me tell you, when this is over, you should hope that you're not covered in the blood of people that you infected during this because of your carelessness. Because whether or not there is a God, all of the data and evidence show that he's not protecting you and your church against a virus. Maybe your God is trying to figure out which of you are stupid enough to think that magic is going to save you against an actual virus. That's not the way the world works, whether there is a God or not. But we're going to keep doing these shows. We're going to keep talking about reality. We're going to keep questioning people on what they believe and why, and pointing out when they don't have a compelling reason. And the instant that somebody shows up with a compelling reason to believe in God, I'm going to believe in God. I don't see the likelihood that it's going to happen, but that's the way this works, is to follow the evidence.
But even if you do believe in a God, it doesn't mean you're going to worship it.
Yeah, I can tell you that if God showed up sometime in the next 7 days, I will still be on the Atheist Experience next Sunday, and I'll be pointing out I'm no longer an atheist, but I'm still a skeptic, and I'm a humanist. And if I can't demonstrate why I've changed my view and believe in God, I don't know that I could be in a position where I maintain that belief. Like, I don't know how to believe something that I can't, like if it was a personal experience, like I'm not an atheist anymore because God revealed himself to me.
Right.
I'm the type of person that would have to say, how do I know that happened? How, there's no independent verification, things like that.
Right.
Seems like there's a really easy solution to this. And that would be for God to simultaneously reveal himself to everyone at the same time. Because even if he reveals himself, I still don't have to worship. I still don't have to agree with that God. I can still reject that God. I'm just no longer an atheist. But as I've said before, if there is a God and he's not a humanist, fuck him. Because I am, and I care about human beings. You guys all take care of yourself. Thanks to the crew. Thanks to Jenna. Thanks to everybody who tuned in to watch. We will see you next week. Be safe. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
What are we doing, man? What are we doing?
No, you're done.